Now for a real classic car, not one of these cherished beauties here, but a modern, compact Peugeot which changed the face of small cars and now makes a great second-hand buy. Right from its launch in 1983, the Peugeot 205 was a hit. Small, classy, friendly and purposeful, it had that certain something which made both men and women want to be seen in one. And it still makes you feel like that today. The Pininfarina bodywork looks fresh and perky. It's as attractive as any of the current crop of super minis like the Vauxhall Corsa or Fiat Punto, and with thousands still on the road in all ages and conditions, from this GTI to the diesel, whatever your budget, there's bound to be one out there for you. If you're after a no-frills car, you can't go far wrong with a diesel 205. The French government gave tax breaks to diesel drivers, so Peugeot spent money getting the engine right. French diesels are fast, frugal and fun to drive. This 1.8 is the one to look out for, and averages between 45 and 65 miles to the gallon. Not bad, eh? They came in a pretty dull range of colours. RAF blue, boring beige, white and off red. And the interiors were pretty basic too. No electric anything. You won't mind letting the kids climb in with their dirty wellies because it's an unglamorous workhorse that starts every morning, runs with little maintenance and goes on for donkey's years. The ride on country roads in a 205 can often put bigger, more expensive cars to shame. On the other hand, if you're driving around town, its nippiness and ease of maneuver in tight spaces will certainly be appreciated. You'll feel confident about parking, doing tricky three-point turns and squeezing through tight gaps. It's a friendly car you'll come to trust, with a very accommodating boot. Buying a 205 diesel? Prices depend on year and condition. If you've got £1,000 to spend, you should be able to find a D-plate diesel with plenty of life left in it. If you've got some extra cash to flash and you want your 205 to turn heads, then how about the cabriolet? Top down, wind in your hair, or not, as the case may be. And with 4 seats, there's plenty of room to take your sun-seeking mates cruising. When they cut the roof off, Peugeot had to strengthen the chassis to keep the handling up to scratch. And all that extra weight in steel slows the car down. So the one to go for is the 1.6 CTI, or even better, the 1.9, which had a good strong engine, loads of street cred, and will cost you about £4,000. The car that sums up the lasting appeal of the 205 range is the GTI. You just had to be seen in it. It's still the same 3-door 205 body shape, but the lowered suspension, fat tyres and spotlights make it look much racier. You can tell the two engine sizes apart because the 1.6 had these holed alloys. The more desirable 1.9 had big chunky spokes. This car was very popular in the 80s, perhaps because it's so user-friendly. You get all that hatchback practicality, along with amazing performance if you get to blast along a B road. Second-hand prices range from £2,000 to £9,000. A recent drop in GTI insurance premiums has pushed prices up.
Used 205 GTIs don't hang around on forecourts or in the classifieds for too long, but don't buy the first one you see. Make sure it's a nice example, it's not been thrashed, it's been cherished. If you find that car, it's probably worth buying it because they're becoming quite rare right now. Make sure you HPI the car. For a fee of £25, the AA or HPI will do this for you, and it checks it's not been damaged, it's not been stolen, recovered, and there's no finance outstanding on it. A car such as this, I'd say it's essential.
Spares are cheap and plentiful. A headlamp is £25 and brake pads are a measly £8 each. Watch out for engines that race through the revs when you switch on, a common fault. Shoehorning that big engine into a tiny bay means you need a plumbing degree to troubleshoot. So find a specialist you can trust and get them to check it out. You can spot damaged valve oil seats by looking for smoke from the exhaust. Blue smoke means a costly repair. Finally, look under the boot. There should be a spare wheel. If not, it could cost you £215. Peugeot 205 was one of the cars of the 80s, And for all the same reasons, it makes a great second-hand buy in the 90s. Small but perfectly formed, it's a car that many have tried to copy, but none have ever bettered. Your car in an emergency and sampling a luxury used bargain, the Jaguar.
MIRA, the Motor Industry Research Association near Nuneaton. And the weather was perfect for burning rubber, as Peter Baker reports.
The Peugeot Sport Club annual rally is much more than just a place to show off your polished Peugeot. Here at this year's venue, the Motor Industry Research Association at Nuneaton, the test track was yours to enjoy, with no pesky speed limits or pedestrians to watch out for. And if speed wasn't your thing, noise maybe was.
Right, my name's Mark Emmett. This is my car, Peugeot 306 XSI, which I bought from new. I was into the cars ever since I was sort of a lot younger. So with this one I decided to put a hi-fi install into it. One thing led to another. Before I knew it, I'd spent £7,500 on equipment. Year of my life, pulling my car apart, installing a hi-fi, which went on to win Live 95 Novice Free. I don't like leaving it parked up anywhere. If I park it in a car park, I'll park it in a distant corner so no one opens doors on it, or park it where I can see it. It don't come out as often as it should do. It's a nice car and it don't get the use it should. On the rear shelf there's a Peugeot toolbox, which a lot of people think is a Peugeot part. That is again part of the hi-fi, which is like custom built by myself in order to sort of generate some points for the competitiveness of sound off. As you can see from the film, I've adapted my car. Down low here, below the ashtray, there's a temperature gauge, which ain't the exterior temperature, it's the temperature of the sub-bass amplifier. There's a probe installed in the amp which tells me the internal temperature so that I can keep an eye on the system. Also on the steering wheel I've put some micro switches under the steering wheel so I can change volume, track, switch from compact disc to radio.
But it wasn't just the power of the amplifiers that was pumping out this weekend, but also elbow power. It was show and shine time.
Today, both myself and Glenn Campbell will be judging the show and shine and the concourse. In the show and shine, what we'll be looking for is everyday cars that are used to and from work, normal commuting, which are maintained meticulously by the owners. What we're looking for is immaculate paintwork, no curved wheels, immaculately clean engine bays, you know, something that's absolutely bathed by its owner and cherished. In the concourse, that is another league altogether. These men are insane. The cars are basically out of the factory, brand new, totally nothing but rebuild cars. Naturally, this isn't one today as a brand new car.
Well, not such an obsession, but I don't think it is with the girlfriend, so she thinks I've gone too far. Spend more time with the car than I do with her. I've entered it for the concourse. I came down yesterday afternoon, I jet washed it, and I came back to the hotel. And I got a sponge and I washed it again. Came here this morning, I've washed it all off and polished it. You know, got here for about 7:30 this morning. I started. I was on at about 1 o'clock. So a lot of time spent on it.
When I first bought the car, it was totally standard, 205 GTI 1.9, and within the 3 years I've just carried out numerous modifications. I've won quite a few trophies. Also, it's actually been in Max Power magazine and the Reds magazine. So all the work they have put into it, it's not gone to waste. A lot of my friends do actually take part in these competitions as well as in RS shows or whatever club there is. So generally all my friends are into the same kind of business. So you don't get any of this, you're crazy for doing this, or you're mad for doing this, because generally all my friends' cars are up to the same standard. So They're pretty easy to live with. In the last week, I've averaged a good 13 hours a day in the last week and a half before running up to the shore.
Yes, he actually said 13 hours a day working on his car. That's obsession with a capital O.
And it's, I don't know, it's just a bit of an obsession, really. I really can't put my finger on it. Sometimes I'm up, my son's here, he's showing his car at the bottom, my daughter's helping out. It's just a bit like a family. It's like a family thing, and I don't know the reason why. I must be a fairly sad individual.
Sadness was the emotion furthest from people's minds when they were zooming round the Myra track here at Nuneaton, pretending they were a touring car champ. Of course, there was the real thing. Patrick Watts was on the Peugeot sports stand. His car may have started life as a standard 406, but now it was miles away from the average repmobile.
Well, apart from the colour, they basically rip all the interior out. They replace the standard road tyres with racing tyres and much modify the engine. As well as that, we then go further and make the car less of a compromise and make the suspension very hard. Basically, it's a Formula 1 car underneath, and but it still looks like a Peugeot 406 and has a lot of the attributes of the 406, like multi-link rear suspension, which is a great bonus to us over the old 405 we had last year. Even the engine, it has to be in the same position, but they move it back a foot and down about 6 inches to get the weight distribution better, which doesn't aid servicing, for instance, because you can't actually see the exhaust system inside the engine. It's a massive job to change anything inside because it's a no-compromise race car. The wheels and tyres, they're as big as you're allowed to go. They're 19-inch diameter, 9 inches wide. The brake diameter is the same as most people's road car, 14-inch diameter brakes. But you need that because you're slowing down nearly 1 tonne of car from getting on for maybe 155 miles an hour down to 40 miles an hour, say at Thruxton, and you're constantly on and off the brakes. You need massive great brakes. And altogether, I wouldn't want to drive it on the road. Give me my 406 V6 any day. I've just been going around the high-speed circuit here in the 306 GTI and the GTI 6 and the 106 GTI. Like 140 miles an hour, going around the bank corners at 125 to 130. When you're racing, you're used to dicing wheel to wheel at 130, 140 miles an hour. Then you get on the motorway on the way home, down the M6, down the M25, and you think it is totally safe.
While we enjoy the day's proceedings, let's have a thought for the organiser. After all, days like this don't just happen.
First one had to find a venue that could be afforded, and then bring everything on that you require. Toilets, refreshments, the traders, of course, mobile generators, loads of things that one wouldn't normally think about. Refreshments, ice cream carts, the insurance. Funnily enough, the highest insurance is for the quarter-mile standing start sprint, where one goes in one's own car, just for a few seconds, and the risk is very low. In fact, the insurance for the performance circuit over here, which has more vehicles on, is relatively low.
Of course, one of the advantages of joining a club like this is to help get cheaper insurance. As you know, if you modify a car, it's a real problem. And looking around, there was hardly an unmodified car in sight.
Well, it's a little bit different, this one. It's got a transplant in MI16 engine out of a 405. Which wasn't brought into this country as a standard vehicle. They did do it in France, and it was sold in France on left-hand drive form. They've imported quite a few into this country, but I don't think there's a 5-door one at all in the UK.
I made a 2.5 for Gutman +1 conversion with 150 plus brake, highly modified cam, inlet manifold, front and exhaust on it. With some rather scrumptious wheels on as well at the moment.
This is my little baby, 306 XSI, 2 litre. I've quite extensively modified it cosmetically. Engine has had like mild modifications, about 145 brake horsepower, which is slightly up on standard. I've uprated the suspension, put larger wheels on, changed the headlights, put the spoilers on and had it all painted, put a nice stereo in it, just made it to my own intent really. But I love it, never part of it.
And it's a Peugeot 309 GTI,
16 valve, which I've transplanted myself with the help of a friend. It's got about 190 brake horsepower, bigger brakes, bigger suspension. After a recent rolling road event in West Yorkshire, we had problems holding it down onto the rollers. So we had 6 people sat on the front of the car and around 5 people sat inside trying to keep it stable so it didn't jump out with the power. We got 184 brake horsepower at 6,000 revs, but it could have gone some more, but we couldn't hold it down. So we gave it up to a bad job somewhere.
As the polishing, admiring, bragging and thrashing continued into the afternoon, one couldn't help wondering what was the single element that bonded these people together. Was it simply automotive camaraderie or something special about that Peugeot marque?
For me, Peugeot are unique in a way. I mean, you've got the likes of your Ford Cosworths and all that sort of stuff, but they just don't have the style at the end of the day. I mean, Peugeots are just that little bit different, and I suppose that's why I like them so much, because I'm that little bit different myself.
They make true drivers' cars, real drivers' cars. I mean, I've looked at various other cars. You know, I can't honestly say I've thought about selling this one, but I've looked at various other cars, and I'd have to spend a hell of a lot more money to get the sort of, you know, grin factor I get with this thing. That's what makes them so special.
One of the only manufacturers took the name GTI, followed all the two performance cars. 2.5, 2.6 now cult versions of the Peugeot marque.
Peugeot are the ultimate hot hatch. It's an affordable sports car that an everyday man can get out and enjoy.
Well, for me particularly, because for many years I worked for its predecessor in this country, which was Chrysler. But they're just a very good car, they're an affordable vehicle, and they seem to attract a great deal of loyalty, and you only have to look over there to see the Club Peugeot people who come to see us today, to see that it has adherents of all ages and all ages of Peugeot. They're a long-lasting car, and they're certainly the most exciting car to drive that I've ever had, and I've been in the motoring for most of my life.
Peter Baker meeting the Peugeot fanatics at their annual rally. And don't forget, if you'd like us to visit your car club, do please drop us a line. We're based at Granada Television in Manchester. The postcode here is M609EA. Well, we have to take a quick break, and soon John Wright will be continuing his perfect paint job on his Citroën. We'll see you very soon.